What's up everyone, my name is Jedith, and this video is going to give you some super secret tech so you can improve your raid performance no matter what difficulty you're on, whether it's heroic or mythic. Sometimes you just get caught up in the heat of battle and you forget to press things. You could forget to use your trinket, you could forget to use a damage pot, or even, God forbid, you could forget to use your big major cooldowns. And in the case of Havoc Demon Hunter, that would be meta. You can plan these things out in advance as much as you want, but we all know that once you get in there, it's a completely different story and you might forget things. Sometimes the encounter you're on, you might even want to be using things at a unconventional time. You might not want to be just popping everything on pull right away. Maybe you want to save your trinket for a specific damage amp burn phase. For example, the intermissions on Smolderon from this raid tier. Now, these are all things that the high performing players go and figure out on their own while they're on their prog. They spend countless hours reading up strats on the fight and mapping out exactly where they should be using everything and when it's going to be the most optimal. You can actually learn these things from taking a peek into their encounter timeline to see exactly what they're doing. Now you can do this, the hard way by going to Warcraft logs and trying to find the right boss and then sorting it by whatever class and spec you're playing, and then, going through all the different tabs, and finally, after about a minute of clicking, you find yourself on the right page, and then you have to try to read it and get the information you're looking for. Well, there is actually an easier way to do that. There's a website called lorgs.io, and it maps it out for you completely. Why don't I just show you? So this is the homepage of lorgs.io, and you may have seen me make a video of this website previously, or you've seen somebody else make a video on it. I do want to say, before you click away, because you already know all this stuff, there is something extra that is kind of brand new. Just over the past little while, it's a feature that's been implemented into the site where you can actually take the data that you see from this site and import it into your own weak aura, which will then alert you in real time as to when you should be using these things. But we'll get there. First, let's look at the website. So this is the homepage. You can click on whatever class and spec you might be playing. There's stuff for healers, for tanks, for melee, ranged. But for this case, obviously this is a Havoc Demon Hunter channel, so that's the example I'm going to use. But this does work for literally any class, any spec, whatever you might be playing. So let's click on Havoc. And the first thing we can do is sort it by boss. So we can click on any boss that you might be progging on at the moment. For example, I recently used this for Tindril, and now across the top here, you can toggle things on and off, anything that you want to be tracking. If you want to track your damage pot, you can turn that on or off, and you can see on the timeline down here, these are all of the top parses, and you can see that they are using their pot, like I said earlier, at an unconventional time, right? Not always right on pull. Some of these players are using it about 50 seconds in, and of course that's for the second set of roots. So you can toggle that off if you want, or toggle it on. You can see when people are using darkness, when they're using their trinket. So the two most used trinkets on this fight are Ashes of the Ember Soul and Witherbark's Branch. Again, you can just toggle them on and off and see exactly when they're being used. You can toggle meta on and off. This is a big one. We want to make sure that we're using our meta at the right times, especially now that it's a 2-minute cooldown. We don't want to be missing any meta uses, and we don't want to be wasting any. You can see when people are nether walking at the 50-second mark, or shortly after everyone's like popping their big cooldowns for the roots, then they're nether walking to make sure they don't die. You can see, you can even go like really, really specific and see when people are vengeful retreating, when they're using the hunt. For my case, what I was looking for was meta, trinket, and potion. So this is the data that I needed. So all of this information is great, right? You can look at this and you can take note, you can take a mental note, be like, okay, people are using their meta on pull. Most people are using meta on pull, and they're saving everything for the second set of roots. They're using their trinket, their potion. You could even write this down manually. You could take a note on your computer, whatever. But there's actually an easier way. So if you're doing this type of stuff, most guilds nowadays are using something for a note during their raid, where they assign cooldowns. They just, make notes and push it to the raid team that everyone needs to see. And the most commonly used one is MRT. It used to be ERT, Exorcist raid tools. It is now Method raid tools. And I'm pretty sure that's the only one that anyone really uses for it. So if you go into the game and you type MRT, it's going to bring it up. You can also type /ERT to bring it up. It also works. And you go into note. So this is the note, the top one here. This is the one that your raid leader is usually pushing to you. You're going to see all this, depending on whatever boss you're currently fighting, they'll push you a different note, right? there's also a personal note, and this is a note that you set that's going to display underneath the raid-wide note. So what you can do is come into Lorgs, and if we come over here, say I want to copy Hawk's layout here. So we can click on this little icon here, and then we're going to put our name in here, type Jedith. Now this gives us the code that we can then click on to copy and bring into here. So what we're going to do is we're going to click add, and it'll create a new note. You can select the boss, set it to Tindril. Then we're going to just paste it in. And if it doesn't look like this, you want to make sure you have formatting checked. That's going to actually turn the name into the class color and look like what you're seeing on the screen. So you can go through and do this with literally every boss in the raid. You do have to keep in mind that it's not always going to be identical to what you experience in the game in terms of timings. Some mechanics, some bosses are based on time. Some are based on boss health percentage. So if you, for example, push the boss too quickly or too slowly, your timings may differ than what you see in the note that you copy. But for the most part, you kind of just have to use your general knowledge of the fight and try it out. So for example, you can go to Gnarl Root, and this one's pretty basic. You shouldn't need much help with this fight, but you can see everyone's using all their stuff right on pull, and then again, the next time it's up, essentially 2 minutes in. Even though this is like super simple, everything's just stacked and used when you would expect it to be used, it is still good to have these reminders when you're in the raid, because sometimes I forget to press my second damage pot. I forget all the time. I'm not too proud of that, but I do make that mistake. Same with my trinket. So it's good to have these little reminders. So you're going to want to set up one of these for each boss. You don't have to do it for everyone, but it doesn't hurt to have whatever bosses you feel like you might need a little assistance on. I just set up a couple here just for example's sake. Okay, so this is what I've pasted in for Tindril. And then if I want to use this as my personal note, I'm going to click this button down in the bottom right, and that pushes it into my personal note here. So like I said earlier, the personal note is always going to show underneath the raid-wide pushed note that your raid leader is sending you. So if I'm on Tindril, I'm going to click on the Tindril one, set as personal note. Say I moved on to, I went backwards and I wanted to do Gnarl Root. I would click on Gnarl Root, click set on personal note, and now I have the timings for Gnarl Root set right here. So where it gets extra interesting, and this is the extra step that I mentioned earlier, is you can use the weak aura. It's the K's MRT timers. So essentially what this does is it reads your note on the screen, and it then gives you actual larger alerts as to what's happening. You can customize this however you want, but how I have it set up right now is it has a little icon right here of whatever it's going to be, whether it's, you can see on the top left here, my trinket, my potion, meta, etc. It's going to show that icon there. It's going to show the text of whatever that is. And it's also going to glow when it gets to a certain point. All that can be customized in the custom options of the weak aura. This is pretty insane, guys, because like I said earlier, you can go on Warcraft logs and you can look up all this information and just make a mental note. But with this, you're actually able to rip that information from lorgs.io, paste it into your game, and now you are getting live alerts at these points in time whenever you need to be using those abilities. You can customize it as much as you want. You can make the alert glow. You can make it text to speech. It can like say what it is that you need to be using. It could flash. It can say the text of what it is. It can not say the text. It can just show the icon. And you can get really particular with what you actually want to include in the copy. You can, for example, if we want to go to Smolderon, I used this on Smolderon and it was very, very useful because I wasn't using ashes, but I was using the Midas Talisman. And you can see that that's being used at a very particular point in this fight. You could include the hunt if you want. You could include darkness, whatever you want to include. You just have to toggle it on or off and then click on whichever parts you want to copy. And that will now be included in this. Just copy and paste it in. Now, if you have been really attentive and you've been kind of looking at my screen, you may have noticed that I'm using a new Havoc Demon Hunter weak aura pack in the middle of my screen. This is one that I've been working on myself because normally I would use the one that comes in Now's UI. I started making my own because everyone comes into my stream and they ask me, hey, can I get your weak aura pack? And I have to tell them no, because it's part of Now's UI and it's, you know, it's his thing. I don't want to redistribute his product. So I went ahead and got some help from a couple friends and we put together this weak aura pack. It is not fully available to the public yet. We're still working on it. We want to make sure that there's no bugs, that it kind of all makes sense and there's not too much fluff, but also not too minimal. So we're kind of like giving it a test run right now. It is available for beta test for anyone that's signed up to my Patreon. So if you want to test this out, you can sign up to the Patreon at whatever you want to do. The lowest tier, $2, and it will get you access to the beta version of this weak aura pack. And we have set up a channel in the Discord where you can go in and give us your feedback for this weak aura pack, any suggestions you might have, what you like, what you don't like, errors or bugs you might encounter, anything like that. We want to gather as much feedback about this as we can. So if you're interested in helping us out with that, please consider going to the Patreon, sign up at the lowest tier if you want or higher, and you will get access to this. We're updating it. I've updated it like 4 times since I've published it to the Patreon. So there's always updates happening. And yeah, once this gets ironed out and we have a product that like we're pretty happy with, you can just get this for free. It will be free to the public. It will not be behind a paywall. But if you do want to get it a little bit early, want to help us beta test it, you can go to the Patreon. All right, so the link to the Patreon will be in the description below, as well as the links to lorix.io, method raid tools, and the K's MRT timer weak aura. All right, thanks for watching. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and yeah, see you next time. All right, peace.